Hello, welcome to Tools of the Roofing Trade. In today's episode, I would like to discuss different kinds of bits that you're going to be using in the roofing industry. And so I'm just going to come over to the table here. So first of all, we're going to make a little distinction here. These things here are drill bits. They're for drilling into wood. These things over here are driving bits. Okay, drill bits, drive bits, drill bits, drive bits. Now, sometimes these can be referred to as drill bits, but I think it would be easier just to keep track of if these are called drill bits, these are drive bits. The one that we use the most often, it seems to me, is this one here. It's a star drive. This is like a really good bit because it doesn't strip out. So when you're trying to drive like a 3-inch screw into some wood, like you've got to install some new wood decking, such as that stuff right there. That's like 1/2 inch CDX right there. When you're driving this screw, this particular bit, it's got like a lot of resistance to stripping out. And stripping out basically just means, like, let's say you've got a Phillips head. Phillips heads tend to strip out more easily. So stripping out means, like, you were drilling your screw in, and then all of a sudden you didn't put enough pressure, and so it like starts spinning like this really quick, like on the top of that head. And so like it tends to bend the edges of these of the stiles, or whatever you call them, starts to bend it around a little bit. And then once it's like starting to bend around a little bit, well, you've kind of ruined the bit. So especially if you keep doing it over and over and over and over, it really starts to ruin it. So the T25s are pretty good because, even if you're not doing a really good job of keeping your pressure, it doesn't tend to strip out hardly at all. I mean, eventually it will wear out, but you can go through all kinds of screws, like, maybe hundreds perhaps of screws before it starts wearing out, and you need to get a new bit. So that's the T25, and that's for fastening decking, for fastening wood. We got these 3-inch screws. So T25 star drive, T25 star drive. That's what it looks like. It's not a perfect hexagon. It's got the little bump outs. See the 6 points, sort of like a star there, sort of like a hexagon, except that the points are pointing outwards a little bit. And the T25 is the particular size. There's also a T20, which is smaller. There's a T30, which is larger, and other sizes as well. But this is the one that we use the most. It goes into a framing screw, just like this right here. 3-inch framing screw. See the fit, and you can see here basically what the inside of that looks like. And so anytime you need to replace a little bit of decking, like the CDX plywood over there, this is the member that we're going to usually use. This is the fastener, 3-inch exterior screw. Okay. Another bit that gets used quite a bit is the Phillips in roofing. There's a couple of sizes there. It's basically just a plus sign or a multiplication sign, depending on how you rotate it, and 4 stiles kind of coming outwards. And so this one here is a Phillips 3, and that's the one that's going to fit into this screw here. Now this screw here is for use on a flat roof. It's called a TPO roof, or sometimes a PVC roof. It's got the large plate there that you see, that silver plate, as well as the long screw. And so that Phillips 3 fits right into there for TPO roofs. Another one that gets used quite a bit is the square bit. And, very aptly named, it's just a square. There's square 1, square 2, square 3. This one here is, I think, just a hair bigger than a square 2. And so this one I call a funny square bit, but it came from a metal supplier, Alabama Steel, that supplies metal roofing. And so it's going to fit into these screws here, which are for standing seam or snap lock, both the same thing, just different names. Metal roofing, has a good snug fit into it. And it also, I believe, works well for these, wait, not that one. Let's see. What? Oh yeah, okay, so it works well for both of these. This one came from Alabama Steel. You see the flat pancake head on it. This one here came from A&E Metal, I believe, and it's got a little thicker head, but still I think they may call it a pancake head. And so this square bit here will fit both of those. Let's see what else here. We've got, you know, when I mentioned the Phillips, I guess I should also mention the flathead screwdriver, which is this one here. It's just like a minus sign or a vertical line, depending on how you rotate it. One wide style is all it's got there. So a lot of times, you know, the Phillips and the flathead are kind of like peanut butter and jelly. They go together. Sometimes when you need one, you'll need the other. Flathead is very bad for driving something, for driving a screw or a fastener, because when you try to get it on there, you'll like, you know, it'll come off as you're screwing it, and then you'll like gouge your finger with that sharp style. So I never really like to use these, but if you have to pull out a screw, you may need to use it. Okay, these guys here are called nut drivers. We got a 1/4 inch and a 5/16. They're color coded there. You can see on the drill bit, it mentions the name and the size there. Milwaukee 1/4 inch, Milwaukee 5/16 inch. And these are called nut drivers. And these are gonna go onto these fasteners here. These are screws for a low rib metal roof. This is what's really most common. When you see a metal roof, it's going to be the low rib kind generally. And so that's it right there. It's got that black neoprene washer on there that, since you're going through the metal, you've got to kind of waterproof it. And so that snugs down nice and tight. Not too tight, but fairly tight, and kind of expands out just a little bit and seals up that ring. So nut driver for those guys. You can see what it looks like there. 6 sides. The nut driver. This one here would probably be a little easier to see. See the 6 sides there, like a hexagon. So, nut driver. Good for that fastener right there. And that is all of the fasteners. Let's talk real quick about where you want to find these. So, if you're doing a TPO roof, a flat roof, that guy right there, you're going to look in like a red bucket, or it doesn't necessarily have to be red, but a bucket like that. There's plates. Bucket like this might have the actual screws in it. Okay. And if you noticed here, this bucket has a household knife in it. That's for cutting isoboard insulation. It's usually 2-inch thick. The stuff that we use. And so if you've got to bevel the angle or go straight with it, this works pretty well, as does a hand drywall cutting tool. Okay. If you are doing a metal roof, you're going to be looking for a plastic bag like that to either have, you know, these screws for a low rib through fastened roof, or, you know, to find these screws, which are for the snap locks or standing seam, same thing, roof. So that's where you want to look for those. And then these framing screws you want to find in a box like this right here. It may be a little bit wider than that, but something like that. A little cardboard box is generally where those guys are going to be. Now if you notice, all of these guys here are about 2 inches long, and they've got that little slot there for kind of fitting right into an impact driver. So this is an impact driver, this is a drill, okay? We generally like to use this thing here for driving a fastener, like a screw or something, because it's so easy to just push the tip in, and then when you're ready to get it out, you yank on that with 2 fingers and then kind of grab it out like that. And so it's easier with 2 hands, but you know, you can do it with 1 hand. There is also a short fastener. Let me see if I can find it. I threw it in here the other day. Yeah, here we go. A little short guy. I hate these things. They're like 1 inch, and I try to not even have these things in the truck because they're just so awful. You know, you put it into the impact driver, and like, you know, it kind of shoves way in there where it's hard to even get it on the head of something. And then, you know, a lot of times too, it will actually fall out. Of course, Murphy's Law, it's not going to necessarily do it right now, but it will fall out like all the time on the job site. So, you know, you'll be screwing along and then, whoops, you know, there went the thing, and it might fall all the way off the roof, and then, you know, it's just a real pain to have to deal with that. So I hate these things. They will fit into the drill itself. So if you loosen up the, I think it's called the chuck, and put this thing in there, it will fit in there, but it doesn't have a lot of purchase. I mean, it's just in there just a little bit, so, you know, it doesn't have a lot of purchase. So I hate these things, and I even called Milwaukee today asking if they had a set of assorted 2-inch bits like this, and they're like, no, we don't, you know. But the guy was like, I agree with you, I hate these 1-inch bits, they're awful, you know. So I think pretty much everybody hates these. I don't know if it's, you know, a marketing thing to maybe make more money, or what the issue is, but I never try to keep these in the truck. They're awful. They're just all around awful. And even if you get like a magnetic holder to slip it into, that's another point where every time you start and stop the drill, you know, it's got to put pressure on that thing, and it's a little bit of lag and jerk, and it can fall out of there sometimes, or you know, these things are pretty easy to lose too. So it's just not a good system in my opinion. So, you know, 1-inch bad, 2-inch good in my opinion, and on my job sites and stuff. So let's talk a little bit about plywood here. We mentioned it. So this stuff here is 1/2-inch CDX, and if you'll notice the top here, it's got 3 plies, okay? 1 in the middle, 1 on both sides, and they're glued together. And so it's like more or less like solid wood, and so that's really good. That's really structurally sound. It has good holding power for your fasteners. When the screws go in, they're not going to want to like strip out of the wood, like, you know, and pull out. If there's a leak, it's not going to damage this wood as bad as if you've got OSB. So OSB stands for oriented strand board, and you can see it's just like wafers kind of pressed together, glued together. I don't like this stuff. It's kind of spongy between rafters. It doesn't have as good of holding power for fasteners, especially if you're doing a TPO roof. I think GAF and other manufacturers want to see, you know, something with better holding power than the OSB. Something like, you know, this right here. I'm not sure the thickness that they require, but you can check that out for yourself. But long story short, this stuff is really good. CDX. I think one side is supposed to be a little better than the other, possibly, but that doesn't really matter because it's going to get covered up in roofing. You know, a lot of homes really use this. You know, maybe 95% of homes use that for their siding and their roof decking. But if I have a choice in it, I usually try to steer people towards doing this right here, CDX. So that's pretty much the only 2 kinds of decking you see: OSB, CDX. CDX is much better, in my opinion. And this pallet here is kind of similar to what you might see on some older houses on the roof decking. Sometimes they'll have 1x6 or 1x8 slats, and they'll have little gaps between it sometimes, and that's not good, especially for shingles, because if you're going to be shooting some nails into that gap, and then those nails can wiggle free a little bit, and like then you can get a leak right there. So, you know, a lot of times if we see this, we may actually install 1/2-inch CDX over the whole thing. Now, to be technically correct, this stuff here is like 15-30 seconds, and this stuff here is like 7/16. But, you know, that's practically a 1/2-inch. So, you know, a lot of times we just say 1/2-inch CDX, 1/2-inch OSB. If you say plywood, you're probably talking about this. So that's pretty much it on the decking stuff. And I think we've covered most of this stuff over here. We'll just go ahead and show you a couple other items really quick. This stuff over here is called TPO. That's what it looks like. There's a roll 5 foot by 100 foot long. It's got, you know, some insects and stuff on it, but that can be cleaned off. You can see it's like, you know, gray on one side, white on the other. And so for mechanically attached systems, you'll actually screw through this stuff into your decking, and then you'll bring another lap over it and heat weld it. And so it's a really good product. I know that looks pretty junky with having sat in the garage. Here's another roll. This one here is the tan color. You can see that's more what it looks like. It's nice and clean, you know. Here's some, this stuff is called fan fold insulation, 1/2-inch fan fold. And, you know, it kind of just opens up like an accordion and lies down on the roof, and it acts as a separation sheet. That's for if you're installing this TPO stuff on a flat roof or nearly flat. Acts as a separation sheet. I think it's kind of like a fire barrier, and it's also a nice smooth surface where there's nothing that's going to want to punch through that TPO and damage it. You know, even if somebody's walking up there, you know, it's got a nice cushiony feel to it, provides protection, and it also provides insulation value, in addition to like the TPO being very light color, lighter than any shingles that I know of. And so it's a very good system, especially down here in the south where we got hot summers and stuff. See if there's anything else I wanted to cover here. Let's just take a quick look at the drill bits one more time here. The drill bits, if you'll notice, see that it says T25 on it? That tells you your size. So when you're going to get a drill bit, you want to make sure to get the right one. You don't want to make a lot of trips from the roof to the truck. So take the time to, a lot of times it's hard to see, but take the time to look at the bit. That one says Irwin PH3. So that stands for Phillips 3. Irwin is just the brand. This one here says DeWalt SQ1. That stands for, DeWalt is the brand, square 1. So that's the smallest square bit size. Okay, this one here says Irwin 6-8. I actually don't know what that means, but that's a flat bit. Okay, that's the same one that we already looked at, square 1. So you get the idea. You know, you just want to minimize trips from the roof to the truck. So take the time, you know, learn these driving bits or drive bits. They're really important. In a sense, it's kind of like that's sort of like half of roofing right there, is because the fasteners, what holds your roofing on, is kind of like half of it. So, you know, once you learn this and get really proficient on just the stuff in this video here, that'll really increase your productivity, and in general it tends to help you get paid more. So okay, so I wanted to show y'all a couple other things here. So I got some pictures at Home Depot of like some packs of driving bits. So this picture right here is a Milwaukee pack of Star Drive. So yeah, so like when I say a T25 bit, like, you know, Star Drive is probably the more accurate name, like, or the more fitting name for like talking about what type of driving bit it is. And then like the designation, like T25 or T20 or T15, T10, T30, T40, those are like the sizes. So, you know, Star Drive is like a little more descriptive in my opinion than saying like T25. But what I'm always going to say is probably T25. So whether I'm asking for a T25 or a Star bit, same thing. And that very well might be the bit that gets used the most. Because anytime you need to like fasten a 2x4 or a 2x6 or put some decking or You know, a lot of stuff you're going to be using that T25 star bit. So get to know it, get to love it. It's like so important. We use it all the time. You want to make sure you know what that is. But anyways, there's some different sizes. You can see the one on the top is the smallest. That's the T10. The one on the bottom is the T40, which is huge. I've never used one of those. And the one right smack in the middle is the T25. Now, if you also notice, these bits are not as long as the ones in the earlier part of this video. The ones that I always use are the long ones. And so like these guys are like short and stubby. And so if you try to put these into an impact driver, like in other words, a drill you might be thinking of, if you try to put that into like an impact driver or, you know, something like that, where it's designed to have those things just click in and you don't have to like tighten the chuck on it or anything. It may not even have a chuck. You know, these little short stubby guys, they'll just fall right out. So like if you put it in there, I mean, yeah, you can kind of, you know, maybe for one or two screws you could make do with these little short stubby things, but you know, they're just gonna like be falling out of the drill or out of the impact driver rather, like all the time. And so I hate these things. I absolutely hate these little short stubby things. You know, if you've got a drill that has one of those chucks, or I think it's called a chuck, that cinches down, then yeah, I mean, you could use these, but even there, it's like, you know, you get more purchase on the handle of the bit if you have the longer ones. So I absolutely hate these short stubby versions of bits, whether it's the star bits or the Phillips or the flat or the, you know, you name it. They make it short and stubby. I don't want it. You know, I want the one that's going to be longer and it's going to click into my impact driver and stay put and not fall out, you know, 50 or 100 times while you're trying to do your work. So I never buy these. I don't like to see them in my truck. But anyways, they sell them like crazy. I don't know why. Okay, next picture is somebody else's version, DeWalt, different brand, their version of star bits, star drivers, T25s and some other sizes. All right, next picture, DeWalt hex drivers. Okay, so 6-sided, perfect hexagons, and it's the male version. The female version would be called a nut driver, and so, you know, kind of flip sides of the same coin sort of deal. Again, like all three of those pictures are short and stubby. So let's go over here to this picture and let's see like a good drill bit. There's what a good drill bit looks like. See how it's like longer and it's got that little like carved out spot? That way you can just shove it into the impact driver and it clicks and it stays put and it doesn't fall out of the drill. So, and even if you're going into a true drill that like cinches down on it, it has more purchase on the end that goes into the drill, and so it holds it tight, and you know, it's a more solid like connection there. So I always like to get these longer drill bits, driver bits I should say, longer driver bits. So that's why. So I think that is everything. We are closing out now on this session of Tools of the Roofing Trade drive bits.